is the Banner Baseball Show. Paul Mancano back here in Baltimore. Danielle Allentuck in Texas. Are you in Arlington preparing for the Home Run Derby tonight, Danielle?
I am. I'm very excited for it.
It's going to be an exciting night as Gunnar Henderson is the second Oriole in a row after Adley Rutschman last year to compete in the Home Run Derby. Got the All-Star game tomorrow. We're going to talk about maybe possibility of a little Corbin Burns starting that game for the American League. We're also going to talk about the Orioles' first round draft pick, Vance Honeycutt, to close out our show. But first, Danielle, the Orioles, boy, do they need this All-Star break. This could not have come at a better time. This could not have come soon enough, frankly, and I think Orioles fans wish that it came a week ago.
Yeah, it was a really rough week. I mean, what was it? A 6-game losing streak, 5-game losing streak? I can't even count. It was so
It
high.
was 5, and it was dangerously close to 6 on Sunday.
Yeah, I mean, they just didn't look like the 2024 Orioles. They looked like, a rebuilding team. Like, I think fans maybe have got some bad deja vu from this week, but it was a rough week. Luckily, all but 5 players get a couple of days off now, which should help them reset because they have a big week coming up too. They're playing Texas in Texas again, which I'm sure that will bring up some emotions of being eliminated last year. So I think just ending on a walk-off and going into the All-Star break with a 1-game lead over the Yankees, finally getting a win, I think it's going to help everybody out.
Yeah, I would be concerned about what the state of the Orioles fan base mentality would be if they lost that game, which they were so close to doing after Craig Kimbrell blows the 3-2 lead in the 9th inning as Ben Rice, the Yankees rookie, hits a 3-run homer. Orioles now down 5-3 as they head to the bottom of the 9th, and they have a miraculous rally capped off by the worst route on a fly ball maybe I've ever seen from Alex Verdugo. As that ball sails over his head, probably would have been the final out of that game. Instead, the Orioles walk it off. If they went into the break losing 6 straight, especially the way that they lost those games, the Cubs series was not competitive at all. The Orioles were outscored in that series 21-2. The offense has looked completely lifeless. Didn't even look great. They scored 6 runs in that game yesterday, but has not looked great. And like you said, Danielle, it feels like this team is regressing compared to the team that we've seen for the first half of the season and going back to 2023. I tweeted out it felt like 2019, not because I expect this team to lose 100 games and go on a horrendous losing streak, but just the quality of play over the last week. I think maybe the long June finally caught up with this team. Exhaustion was starting to set in because they looked like they were in a complete funk, offensively, defensively, and even the pitching.
And I was thinking about this on my plane ride to Texas yesterday, but I mean, I feel like we didn't see the team collapse until the playoffs last year. And then, they just looked like a completely different team in that series against Texas. But
yeah,
if they're going to have a funk, I always say, like, you want it during the regular season. And what better time than right before the All-Star break when you can completely reset? So maybe they got it completely out of their system. Maybe they just, like you said, the exhaustion caught up to them. They just needed to reset for a couple of days and then they'll be better. But I think what really surprised me is that, with the pitching injuries, you kind of would have expected a couple bad starts from these guys who, weren't expected to be major league pitchers, but it was just everybody. It wasn't even really the pitching that cost them these games. It was really the offense, which, they haven't had those injuries. They have no excuse there like the pitching staff does.
Yeah, the offense completely. It just felt like everybody went into a funk at the worst possible time. I mean, Gunnar Henderson suddenly wasn't hitting. Adley Rutschman wasn't making the same quality of contact. I saw a lot of, fatalism from Orioles Twitter about you need to go out and trade for a bat. I don't think this team needs to acquire a bat. I just think that if anything, this team is going to get some promotions from some top minor leaguers. I think we're probably going to see, based on what Mike Elias has said, we're probably going to see Kobe Mayo pretty soon. And we could see Jackson Holliday at some point in the second half as well. So that's where the offensive improvements are going to come from. And then I think the guys who are in their lineup every day just all went quiet, all went cold at the exact same time. I think you could see some improvements from guys like Colton Cowser, who is still really struggling with hitters on base, or with runners on base, I should say. But everybody just seemed to be hitting a funk at the wrong time. And it could have been worse at this point. It could have spiraled into something terrible, a 6-game losing streak where that's all these guys are getting asked about as they go into the break. But they were able to right the ship at least for one game in the series finale.
Yeah, and I also noticed that, and maybe it's because nobody was playing well, but I think you notice a lot in these close games. You notice Hyde making a lot of switches, fifth inning on, and we didn't notice that from these past couple of days. So I don't
Yeah.
know if that was just he didn't trust, some of his bench players to come through in those situations, but I noticed that a lot too. That he usually manages each game like it's an elimination game, and he didn't do that for this past week at all. And part of it was that whole Cup series was non-competitive, like you said. But it just felt like everybody was just in a weird funk last week.
Yeah. Cedric Mullins losing those 2 balls in the same inning, in the sky, in the lights,
Back,
whatever it
back to
was.
back. Yeah.
He looked completely lost out there. And you were covering that game, and it was not discussed a whole lot because the Orioles lost that game 8-0. So there was a lot more concerns on the pitching side, on the hitting side. But it just felt like this team was finding ways to lose that they hadn't been before.
Mm-hmm.
And the offense going quiet is definitely a concern if that continues. But it just was not good baseball over the past week. And we'll see if they can eventually fix it for the second half. They went through an absolutely gauntlet in the month of June. And now that they are to the All-Star break, this is a chance for them to reset, to just get their head straight, to relax, take some time off, and hopefully figure some things out here.
Exactly. And it's also, I think it's hard when you have 5 players who are in the All-Star game. I mean, it shows how good of a team they are. But your stars aren't getting that break. I mean, Gunnar has a really busy 2 days. Burns is potentially starting the All-Star game. We haven't heard that yet, but he's probably playing in it at some point, a significant amount. Adley's starting it. So I think that's going to be a balance too, because you normally see guys come back from the All-Star game and they're very tired. I mean, we saw that with Austin Hayes last year. So I think that will be an interesting balance too, is how do those guys who don't get a break, how is Hyde going to give them enough time off while continuing to manage the team?
Absolutely. It does help that a lot of these guys are young. Gunnar Henderson just turned 23, so it's his mood, his energy levels shouldn't be affected too much by this. And it also helps that the game is in Arlington. So these guys get to just stay there. They don't have to fly across the country in the middle of the week just to get to the next series. They can just relax there. You're going to be doing the exact same thing, Danielle. You've got your coffee. You're already preparing for a long day today because you've got the home run derby tonight. Adley Rutschman competed in it last year, performed admirably. You've got Gunnar Henderson competing in it tonight with Buck Britton throwing to him. You were on the field at Oriole Park at Camden Yards last week when Buck Britton and Gunnar Henderson were practicing because the rules are different. The timing is different. These are guys that, Buck Britton hasn't thrown Gunnar Henderson BP in quite a while. They need to figure each other out. As Gunnar Henderson said, they need to find the honey hole, find the sweet spot in their swing. But it's going to be an interesting show, I think, is Gunnar Henderson is, I think, even built better for the home run derby than Adley Rutschman was last year. He just has incredible raw power. He can hit the ball to all fields. He has, incredible strength. I think that he's going to perform pretty well tonight.
Yeah, you mentioned that on-field practice. They had Colton Cowser standing in the back, kind of like announcing the rules to them so that they could practice each round, which I thought was pretty funny. He had a little stopwatch out there. He was being very strict. So I think that they're down on the rules. They understand him now, thanks to Colton. But yeah, him and Buck Britton, they have a great relationship. Gunnar loves it when he throws a BP. A big reason, obviously, why he was picked to do this. But I think Gunnar's got a great shot. I mean, he is not only third in the league in homers, he's more homers than anybody else in home run derby, but I think he's so competitive that he's just going to be ready to go tonight. I think he's really excited, and everybody should be really excited to see him.
Yeah, we mentioned those new rules. Last year, these guys were competing in a bracket style throughout. That is changing this year. I finally learned the rules for tonight, and I'm still going to be surprised by new rules. That it feels like they make them up as it goes along. I need Colton Cowser.
It is a made-up event, so
yeah. I need Colton Cowser over my shoulder telling me the rules as it goes along. But here's what is changing so far as I understand. The bracket style is not going to start until the semifinals. So we're just going to get the top 4 performers in the first round are going to advance to the semifinals. Then from there, it's going to be a bracket style. If there's a tie in the first round, the winner is the person who hits the longest homer in that first round. So the first 2 rounds are going to be 3 minutes long. The final round is going to be 2 minutes long. They also added a pitch limit in addition to the clock. So there's 40 pitches. So you're not going to see Buck Britton just rearing back and firing pitch after pitch and, throwing his arm out. You're going to see one of either Gunnar Henderson hits the 3 minutes or they hit the 40 pitch limit. And then it's 27 pitches and 2 minutes for the final round. And then there's the bonus round. Everybody gets a bonus round, which I don't understand why that is a thing, but everybody gets one, which means you get 3 outs for the bonus round. But if you hit a homer during the bonus round that goes 425 feet or more, then you get 1 extra out. Danielle, do you understand the rules as I've explained them to you?
I'm sure I will be sitting there tonight extremely confused as it happens because I'm so used to the old format. And I like some of the new rules. I like that there's no bracket for the first round because I always find it ridiculous if somebody hits like 30 homers and they don't make it to the next round. The pitch count and the time limits, it's odd to me because like when you're throwing so many pitches, like you're bound to just throw a bad one, and you should be able to have that option and just let it go and keep going. In my mind, I think making it shorter as it goes on, maybe with player feedback, that like it was too long, they were getting too tired, and it's just a for show event. But I will be. The pitch count one really gets to me. 27 is really not that much.
It's not. I think this will be the ultimate test of whether the pitch clock is actually leading to more elbow injuries and Tommy John surgeries like the Players Association claims. Because we saw how many pitches Adley Rutschman's dad, Randy, threw last year. If he requires elbow surgery in the next year because he has been throwing too many pitches in too short amount of time, then we know the true answer of what is causing all these injuries. But Danielle, on the fan side of things, on the entertainment perspective, do you like the home run derby? Because I think there is a portion of fans that just sees it as fluff. It is mostly fluff, but that isn't as entertained by it. I think it's mildly entertaining. Are you interested in watching?
I love it. It is like one of my favorite events of the year. I've been in the outfield for it at Coors Field and like had balls like literally flying at my face. And
wait, when was this?
In 2021, I think, maybe 2022.
You're not saying you were standing on the field?
No, like in the outfield seats. Sorry.
Oh, okay. I thought you were one of the kids trying to shag fly balls in center.
No, but I mean, I would have loved to. That'd be so much fun.
That'd be awesome.
But like, it's just fun event. Like the stadium gets really into it, and it's just, I just think it's like the NBA skill competition, but like better, I think. I don't know. I love it. Yeah. I know fans don't agree. I know that there's that old narrative that it messes up a player's swing and all that, but it's just good fun.
Yeah, I think it's the best of the sports all-star game festivities. I think it, like you said, it's better than the NBA skills competition. It's better than the hockey skills competition. It is just kind of a natural. It's what you do in your backyard when you're a kid. Like you do home run derbies because it's just fun to swing as hard as you possibly can. I said last week, I think the kind of narrative that it can screw up players' swing can be probably pushed too hard and can be overrated because I think it really doesn't affect them for the most part. Yeah. They're already going out there and trying to hit home runs. And I don't think Gunnar Henderson was screwed up at all this week by just practicing with Buck Britton. But who knows? If he comes out of the second half cold, we'll probably see that narrative pushed by some.
I know players have like pushed that narrative. I think it's more not getting a break and not playing in home run derby. I think it's like you're just tired from it. It's an exhausting event. But I mean, I think it's better than the actual All-Star game. I mean, people are actually trying to win. It's fun.
Yeah, I mean, it also, like you said, it is exhausting. Like I think if you're just playing a video game home run derby, you don't get an appreciation of just how tiring it is for these guys to swing as hard as they possibly can for 3 minutes straight. It's just, it's nobody's meant to do that. Even guys like Gunnar Henderson.
No. And it's, I don't know. I love like all their teammates on the field with them, I love the little huddles. It's just a good event, I think. I think that they should keep doing it. I don't think they should mess with it more. Maybe I'll change my mind after I see the pitch count in action, but I like it as is.
All right. All right. For tomorrow, you mentioned the All-Star game. Corbin Burns could potentially start for the American League. We already know that Paul Skeens is starting on the National League side because they wanted to announce that early and build the hype. But we don't yet know who the American League starter is. Corbin Burns' wife just gave birth to twins. So he's got a lot on his mind. He's exhausted already, I'm sure. Probably not getting a whole lot of sleep. It could also be, I think, maybe Tigers starter, Tariq Skubal. His ERA is about the same as Corbin Burns, but he's got a lower whip. He's got more strikeouts. Burns is the more veteran guy, if that's what Major League Baseball decides to go with. Do you think he will start? Do you think he should start? And what are you expecting?
I think he has a good chance to start because I think, thinking like MLB marketing, having Burns throw to Adley, I think would just be like a really cool thing. And I think that would do really well. But I think Burns has earned it. I mean, what is this, his fourth straight All-Star appearance?
Yeah.
I think at some point you reward a guy who's just consistently good throughout his career like that. I think that you can make a case for a couple other guys, like you said, but I think you do go with the veteran. You have the rookie on the other side. I would give it to Burns. I think he's earned it.
It would be a fun storyline, like you said, and he certainly has more name brand value, I think, right now than Tariq Skubal, who might go on to win the AL Cy Young. But at this point, he's not as established as Corbin Burns. It
Right.
also is. It's a cool thing. It's like you see, you add it to a player's Hall of Fame resume. Like when Max Scherzer goes into the Hall of Fame, it'll be mentioned that he started X number of All-Star games, and it shows that you are the best pitcher in your league at that point during the season. But it also is a chance for marketing. That's why Paul Skeens is starting for the National League side, because he is the biggest name in baseball right now. Yeah. It's just an opportunity to put your biggest stars ahead of everybody else. And frankly, Corbin Burns in the American League probably is the biggest star right now, on the mound at least.
And Burns went home. He could have gone home to be for his Twins. He decided to come to the All-Star game instead. And I think that, to me, should show MLB that like he's committed to playing as a vet. He wants to be there, and they in turn should reward him for coming when he does have newborn twins back home.
Absolutely.
And if you don't know, MLB paternity leave is only 3 days. So he's only been with his twins for like 4 total days, I believe. So
shouldn't they double that if you have 2 kids?
You would think, yeah. Also, I feel like a starter should be able to take, the amount of time in between their starts.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like if a suspension, they make starters take like 6 days for a suspension just to make sure they skip a start. But if they have triplets, they should get 9 days, I think they should just
add his wife probably thinks that,
Probably, and I would agree with her. All right, let's turn our attention to the MLB draft because we saw the first 2 rounds in the competitive balance rounds last night in Texas, and Danielle, the rounds pick back up today with 3 through 10 in just about 40 minutes. But the Orioles are nothing if not consistent in the MLB draft. They love their college bats. That was the strength of this draft, of the top half of this draft coming in. That's what Matt Blood said last week, and that played right into the Orioles' hands because that is the preferred demographic for this team. Mike Elias has made 6 top picks since he came to Baltimore. All 6 of those have been position players. 5 of them have been college hitters, and 5 of them have hit from the left side. Last night, the Orioles got somebody who doesn't hit from the left side, but he is a college bat, and that's UNC outfielder Vance Honeycutt they took with the 22nd overall pick. He hit 28 homers and stole 28 bases in his final season at UNC. Also 2-time Defensive Player of the Year in the ACC. The only question with him really is his strikeout rate. He struck out 28% of the time last year, so there's a lot of swing and miss in his game. But Danielle, you look at his profile, and if that is really the one tool, his hit tool, which needs to come along, he has the speed, he has the power, he has the defense, he has the arm in center field. He is a 4-tool prospect, and if you can count on the Orioles to develop any tool in a guy's tool shed, it is his hit tool.
I mean, he fits right into this prospect group, the Orioles know what they're doing. They like what they like, and they went out and got somebody else who's just like every other prospect in their franchise. But, they've done well with them, so why not? I think that strikeout rate, like you said, it is something that can be taught. It is just, learning that patience and learning that pitch recognizing. And the Orioles do a really good job at teaching that, especially in their early levels. So I think to me, that's not really a concerning number until he gets a little farther along in his career. I think if he's in AAA and still has a 28% strikeout rate, that's when you start to get a little concerned. But for now, I mean, I think he looks like a great player. I think he fits right into this team. And I think, they're looking into their future where they could be losing 3 outfielders within the next year or two. They could be trading some away at the trade deadline to go get that starting pitcher that they need. And they have to keep, their prospects stocked. So he should fit right into that group.
Yeah, and you worry as this team continues to put out winning seasons and they continue to push themselves farther and farther back in the draft and back to the back end of the first round, that the Orioles won't be able to find that kind of elite talent to replace the prospects that they're trading away. I think Vance Honeycutt is close to an elite prospect in this draft. And that's what Matt Blood said. If it wasn't for that strikeout rate, he would have gone higher. I was shocked that he lasted as long as he did because the tools are so elite. And I heard on MLB Network and ESPN, teams were concerned because of that strikeout rate. They were concerned that maybe he had a lower floor than some of the other prospects. And if they couldn't figure out that swing and miss, that, that would ultimately be a big problem for him. The Orioles know how to fix that. No organization teaches plate approach better than the Orioles. Look at Gunnar Henderson when he first came into pro ball. His strikeout rates were incredibly high. Who draws more walks than Gunnar Henderson in Major League Baseball right now at the top of the lineup? Very few hitters. So he has fixed that. And it takes the right approach. These players have to have the right mentality. They have to have a growth mindset. From everything that we've heard about who Vance Honeycutt is as a player, he brings those to the table as well. And the defense in center field, he's probably not the same elite speed demon that Enrique Bradfield Jr. is, drafted first in the first round out of Vanderbilt last year and is right now in high A Aberdeen. But he's playing great defense in center field. This is a team that likes to draft up the middle early. Vance Honeycutt just checks almost every box for me, and I'm shocked that this kind of talent was there at the 22nd overall pick.
You mentioned Gunnar, and that was exactly who I was going to allude to because they did an excellent job developing Gunnar. He came in with that high strikeout rate. Obviously, high school to college is different in comparison, but they taught him, in those early levels, the patience. Gunnar spent hours working on it, and I have no doubt that Honeycutt would do that as well. You mentioned Enrique Bradfield. I mean, he was drafted primarily as a center fielder, so you may make the argument that you don't need another center fielder, but it is so much easier to develop a guy who can play center field and then move him somewhere else.
Exactly.
And you can never have too many center fielders. So
yeah,
I think the speed is also something that could develop as he gets along in his career too. But I think it's a great pick for the Orioles, especially how far back they were this year.
Yeah. Colton Cowser was a center fielder when he came out of Sam Houston State, and he can still play center field, but he also has the ability to play left. Yeah. The Orioles are not worried about that overlapping skill set. But you bring up a great point as well about the Orioles replenishing their outfield talent and their outfield depth, because you're looking at this trade deadline. I still tend to think that one outfielder named Heston Kjerstad is probably off the Orioles list of tradable prospects. I don't think that they're going to trade him unless they are able to get back an ace level pitcher. But you could look at further down the prospect list. You could look at guys like Dylan Beavers, who was a second round pick a few years ago, or Judd Fabian. These are guys that might find themselves in a trade to another team in order to acquire a pitcher. And the Orioles are going to be potentially losing Cedric Mullins, Austin Hayes after the 2025 season. So they're going to need to replenish that outfield depth. If you have somebody like Vance Honeycutt that you think can move up quickly through your system and be in the big leagues in a few years, that certainly makes you feel a little bit better about trading one of those outfield prospects.
And the advantage of drafting a college guy like him is that he should be able to move up quickly. You could see him in the majors in 2 to 3 years. We've seen that with other guys, but I don't think any outfielder prospect is off the market. I think Heston Kjerstad could be traded, especially for a guy that they have control in a year. So I know you don't agree, but
I disagree. I mean, we'll get into it. I think as we get closer and closer to the trade deadline, I think we can both agree that Jackson Holliday is probably off the table. Yeah. And I think, contributing big leaguers at this point, like Colton Cowser and Jordan Westberg, all-star Jordan Westberg are probably off the table. Definitely. I think Kobe Mayo is as close to untouchable as you can get for the Orioles outside of that list. I think Heston Kjerstad is really where you draw the line, and you get some people on both sides. I think the Orioles they certainly want to keep him if they can. I think he is as close to untouchable as everybody in that second tier, but different people can disagree.
I think if you can get an ace that has more than 1 year of team control, you trade Heston, if that's what it takes.
Sure. Derek Skubal, if you want to just change teams in the middle of the All-Star game, maybe the Orioles will swing a deal like that. Other than Vance Honeycutt, the Orioles made 2 other picks last night. They took 2 Virginia position players, shortstop Griff O'Farrell and catcher Ethan Anderson. Griff O'Farrell is a guy who has a lot of above average tools, but not one standout tool, which is reminiscent of a guy who the Orioles took with the 30th overall pick in the 2020 draft, Jordan Westburg. I remember that being the book on him when he came out of Mississippi State. Was no one elite tool, but he does everything very well. And also is a winner, is a gamer, similar to Jordan Westburg. I'm not saying he's going to turn into an all-star, but he certainly has a similar profile. And then Ethan Anderson, who's a switch-hitting catcher. The only question scouts seem to have about him is whether he can stick behind the plate or if they need to maybe move him to first base. I think the Orioles would be perfectly fine if Anderson doesn't turn into a catcher at the pro level, because they have Adley Rutschman at the big league level, because they have Samuel Basayo waiting in the wings. I think the Orioles are probably fine. Maybe they'll slow play it and they'll give him a lot of opportunities behind the plate. But if he turns into an above average hitter who plays first base, I think the Orioles would be very happy with that outcome.
And I mean, I thought he was interesting just because he hasn't played that much at catcher at Virginia. I think maybe like 20 games in his last season. But it never hurts to have a guy who has catching experience, even if he doesn't end up catching. You never know when you're going to need an emergency catcher, and just having a guy who can do it is just always helpful.
Yeah, you see guys who start as catchers move to different positions. Kyle Schwarber came up as a catcher. Bryce Harper was drafted as a catcher, and they moved to different positions. It happens all the time. So, if the Orioles feel good about moving him elsewhere and they feel like his bat can play, they'll move him and they won't think twice about it. All right, so the draft picks back up with rounds 3 through 10 at noon. Then it concludes tomorrow with rounds 11 through 20. All of this is happening while the Home Run Derby is happening tonight. The All-Star Game is happening tomorrow. What a week it is going to be for you, Danielle, in Texas.
It should be an exciting one, though. It's one of my favorite weeks of the year.
Yeah, and then you just get to stay. Are you planning on grabbing a barbecue while you're down there? Are you going to see some sights in your few days off between the All-Star Game and the Orioles' first series in the second half?
I'm going to try to survive the next 2 days and then figure it out from there. But I'm sure if anybody has any fun Dallas area recommendations, send them my way. I don't really know what to do here, so I'll take
survive
any
the heat. Yeah. Survive the heat.
One.
Yeah. At @D_Allentuck is Danielle's Twitter handle. I'm at Paul Mancano and at All Banner Sports. Danielle has you covered with All-Star festivities this week on the BaltimoreBanner.com, where you can subscribe $1 for 6 months. Of course, Andy Koska and Kyle Goon and John Mioli are also writing, doing some draft coverage as we get through a busy week in baseball. And then hopefully we can all just kick back and relax on Wednesday and enjoy a nice 24-hour break before we go into the brutal second half. Thanks so much for tuning in. Please give us a thumbs up, write us a good review anywhere that you are listening to the Banner Baseball Show. I will read it out here on the show. We appreciate you listening. For Danielle Allentuck, I'm Paul Mancano. Catch you next time.